This episode will be about Club Med surprise meetings without telling me to demeanor me in front of the general manager or whoever in charge. So this is part of what they call pushing out, where they push out American labor, which are blacks, to replace them with Spanish. And I learned about this in college way before it happened. 10 years, 20 years before it happened, they were teaching us about it in college. Well, not in college, but when we go on tour, there's all these superintendents were talking about getting rid of the black labor for Spanish labor, and they lobbying the government, giving the government millions and millions of dollars to get a new source of labor in America. And then what we're looking at now, it have backfired. Because they're predicting by 2050, America will be ruled by Hispanics. As President Clinton told me, he who have the largest population for voting shall rule the land. So it backfired on them. And they were at Club Med pushing out. The last minute, my father come got me. He said, hey, we got to go to a meeting. Like one of the fellows, workers, who be around the pro shop and a pub and all that where they drink at. Now he did tell me. He said, man, they get drunk every night to 1 and 2 in the morning and all they talk about is you. I said, yeah. He said, yeah. When I be serving them drinks, they all be drunk and talking about, they got to find a way to demeanor you in front of the general manager in order for their plan to work, right? So I know it was coming. So I was just reading golf magazines, right, for that month. I was reading the Florida Greens and all them magazines because I know dumb people and scammers. They go to the magazines for that month. I done had guys interview for job and told me they have 20 years experience. And I'm reading my brain as they're talking. I'm reading pages in the golf magazine. So I figured they were going to go to the golf magazine if they ever try to do anything. So here come the meeting. We said we have this meeting. This Sylvia, the general manager, said we have this meeting because we want to take Club Med to the next level. And all of us will be coming together at least a month to see can we bring Club Med in the right directions. Do anyone have any questions? I ain't say nothing. So then Tom Barrow said to my father, Lonnie, where do phosphate come from? you see, I'm old cool. See, y'all should ask David some type of question. And Greg said, no, we ain't got to ask David shit. You the boss. You the boss. You the one we need to ask the question. Because every man out there is under your training. So we want to hear what you got to say. I really don't know. Then Tom Barrow said, David, you tell us, where do phosphate come from? Remind you, this was in the magazine, so as they talking about it, I'm looking at the pages in my head. I say phosphate come from phosphate mines. He said, well, how they get it, the process? I said, they mine it. What you mean, how they get it? They mine it. Man, what kind of stupid question these are? Right? Strap the head. Then Russ said, None of the green mode has brakes on them. Freddie take the brakes off sooner he get in a new mode. So that's what Freddie told me. He say, how will you go about that? Of Freddie taking the brakes off the green mode. I say in reality, to somebody with experience, it's normal. Because the green mode doesn't need brakes. When you take your foot off the accelerator pedal, that green mode gonna stop in the tracks. Therefore, it don't really need brakes. But my philosophy is, if they come with brakes, leave them on there. What it gonna hurt? What having brake gonna hurt? Not a damn thing. I say it's good for new employees for when you training them to let them know there's a brake on it. I say, but after 2 or 3 months, they won't need them brakes. Because when you take your foot out the pedal, that green mode stopping the track. It's hydrostatic. Right? So I say, you're right. So then Greg say, if we had the big tournament and it's gonna be on TV and the fairway mode break down in the middle of the fairway and the TV show finna start, what you gonna do? What you gonna do? Say, call a mechanic. But what if there ain't no mechanic? What if there ain't no mechanic? Why wouldn't I have a mechanic? For a big tournament like this, he gonna be on call 24 hours a day. Just play like I ain't no mechanic. I say, I find a hydrostat release switch, activate it so I can pull the machine. But what ain't no release, man? What ain't no release, man? Determine finna start. I say, bro, you can holler and scream all you want, but you can't make me get stressed and panicky. This is what I do. He said, well, I will send the mechanic out and try to do what he can do. Identify to crank it up to remove it. I say, sir, one thing you fail to realize. I know you ain't never did this type of work before. This is your first little position, you know. But once you touch that machine mechanically, I think it killed a 10-year warranty on it. I can be wrong now. Right? At that moment, Sylvia called someone he know in that type of business, right? To sell equipment. And the guy said over the loudspeaker, once you tinker and tinker on that machine, if they can see where you use the Allen wrench, or they can tell where you did anything, it will kill that warranty automatically. It will kill it. Dead. So that's the last thing you want to do is tamper with a machine on a warranty. What you do is tell your mechanic and they'll talk back and forth with the manufacturer to find a solution to move that machine out of that fairway as quick as possible. And Sylvia said, well, again, David's right. Then Sylvia say, by the way, you and Lonnie have the same name. I say, yes, sir. He said, are y'all related? You say, yes, sir. He said, and you went to college? I say, yes, sir. And then Greg say, this is what I'm telling you about. When you ask Lonnie and all his supervisors a question, they say they got to get back with you. And then they come and find David. He said, I figured out. Because when I asked David a question, he answered it right then. But he said, Lonnie and the other 3 supervisors, they have to come find me the next day to tell me the answer to the question. Say, so David the one running the place. David is the backbone of the place. Why Lonnie hiding him, I don't know. Simply say, Lonnie, why are we sitting here today? You got your son who went to college. It all making sense. When Club Med get new manager, you put to brief them on your department. How can you brief them without telling them that we got an educated man aboard, which is your son? Say, Lonnie, I done been here for 3 years. You never told me about you had a son that went to college for this. Well, you see, I just figured Tom, Greg, and Rush know a little motion David know. Greg said, Lonnie, how can you think that? I checked to see when the last time the greens were built. They were built in 1970 something. And they got Lonnie's son David and Southern Turf built the greens. He said these greens were built, same greens were built 30 years ago, and David the one built them. So how can you say you thought that we know more than David? He said, Lonnie, I got zero experience. I'm learning as I go. You gave me the director job. He said, Tom Barrow been a superintendent for a good while. And I said, but Tom got a tree degree. And Sylvia said, what? I said, he got a tree degree. He don't have a turf degree. And then Greg said something about Russ the best in the world. And I said, well, who heard of Russ? Where he from? Where his resume? Only thing we can take of your word by saying Russ the best. I say, so far when I talk with him, I don't see a goddamn thing about he the best. And Greg went to panicking, you know. He went to panicking. And just froze up. And I say, Sylvia, since they uneducated, two of them probably got no experience whatsoever. They faking their moves, they learn as they go. I say, how about I ask them a question? Since they trying to belittle my father and me. Sylvia say, go ahead. Go ahead, my friend. I said, I'm going to ask you guys one question, Mr. Sylvia. And you need to think about why Club Med is paying them three guys $100,000 apiece in 6 to 8 weeks when the place grow in. That's $300,000. I say, I'm doing all the brain work. I'm doing all the labor. Lonnie keep telling me to train them. And I tell him, in my world, whoever the boss supposed to train the employee, not the employee train the boss. So I refuse to train them. But it don't matter because they got me doing all the work anyway, all the labor and brain work. Well, I want to ask them one question, and you question yourself of why you paying each one of them $100,000 in 6 to 8 weeks, and I'm growing in the place. That should be my $300,000. But I want to ask them, what is Sayadon Diakilan? Sayadon Diakilan. Ask them, what is it? Greg say, Tom, I know you know, you the best around, Tom, please, Tom, tell him. Tom say, I don't know. Drop the head. Greg say, Russ, you done been all over the world. I know you know, Russ. I know you know. Russ say, I don't know. Sylvia say, would you like to give it a shot, Greg? Say, I don't know. I ain't never did the work before. This my first time. I don't know, man. I don't know, Sylvia. I say, Sylvia, Sayadon Akilan is what you paying these guys $300,000 in 6 to 8 weeks. In the $5 million contract or $3 million, whatever it is. You paying them to take care of Sayadon Akilan, which is Bermuda grass. I say it's a disgrace. Is a movie ever made about this here? This gonna be one of the stupidest goddamn movies there ever was. These guys making millions of dollars and don't even know what grass they're taking care of. Boom! Shut the meeting down. As me and my daddy go outside. Greg and Becca is literally crying. Lonnie, he don't want to be part of the team. He don't want to be part of the team. And my dad is saying, David, you don't understand. If you become part of the team, you can take care of both households. I said, did you ever take care of my household, bro? I said, you the reason all this happening. Because instead of putting me over the project, you went and got 3 people from nowhere, no experience, to make that $100,000 each. And now they done backfired him trying to get you fired now. But JB, you don't understand. They my friend. They my friend, my friend, my friend. I say, if you call they your friend from what just happened in there, they had you in there with tears in your eyes because they kept asking you questions what you could handle, and you still gonna call them friend? Man, something wrong with you, Pop. Something badly wrong with you. And Craig say, you don't understand. If you be part of the team, we'll give you a 3-year contract for $100,000. All you got to do is get rid of all the blacks. And my dad said, yeah, JB, just get rid of all of that black guy. Just help them get rid of the black. I say, Pop, you don't understand. When they use you to get rid of all the blacks like they using you right now, they paying you $200 every 2 weeks, which is a disgrace. Because you've been here for over 30, 38 to 40 years. But they making you sell out your own crew who kept you in the job all these years for $200 a week, Pops. Never tell you, Pops. If I get rid of all the blacks, I'm next. They just need a black to get rid of the black to buck EEOC discrimination lawsuits. They want to say the black man fired them. So if it's so easy, why don't they get you to fire? Why they need me to fire? But anyway, I take out some Daisy Lee Stubbs. And ain't no coons in that family, baby. I said, I know y'all want me to take out to my pops. No, baby. That ain't the end one of me and my brother blood there. You know what I mean? We ain't finna sell out. So, when y'all get rid of them niggas, get rid of this nigga too. Cause I'm a more realer nigga than them other ones will ever be. Greg stood there looking like, tears come out of their eyes, and Lonnie, you ain't got no control of him. You ain't got no control of him, Lonnie. Just tell him to be part of the team, Lonnie. Just tell him to be part of the team. And he, JB, you can take care of both houses. I said, man, no taking care of the houses, man. The people don't want no blacks out here. What color you think we is? And that was the end of the devastating meeting, surprise meeting at Club Med when the 3 guys my dad hired tried to demeanor us so they can take a total takeover. Thank you and God bless. Hope you enjoy.